What's up, everybody? We are back. Eclectic Soundtrax. Episode what? 19? I should never say that because I forget what it is. But I think it's something like that. Anyway,
It's not episode one. Yeah.
it's not episode one. Skunk Manhattan, Vic Ramos. Our guest tonight is Mark Sean from the mighty Blackheart Saints, out of Austin, Texas, but quickly taking over the world. So we're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff with him tonight. But before that, and Mark's going to plug some stuff tonight too. I think tonight this probably will air. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I want to just bring up some products, some companies that I use, and like since we've been in this pandemic and we started this podcast, I have failed to advertise really well. So I apologize to our millions of listeners out there who are not getting this information. But as anyone who knows me probably knows, I use Tragan guitars, my signature Tragan guitar, one of them, Goldie over here.
Sexy.
Very sexy guitar. Did some photos the other day with that, and then I got a gold top Les Paul-esque Godin guitar right here, which I absolutely love as well. So there's those guys. And Mark, I think you guys are on with Ernie Ball as well, right? Or no?
Yes, yeah? Ernie Ball. You're right. You got it.
Yeah. So Ernie Ball strings. I've been using these for years now, and got on with them this year at NAMM, and super stoked about that. I got one of their. It's funny. I got one of their volume pedals when I went on tour with the Invincible Czars, and I was playing keys and stuff. And Josh was like, "Oh, you should really get a volume pedal." Never really used it. I had this whole setup of a synth guitar and my keyboard and a pedal board and this crazy bunch of bullshit. And I'm so used to just as someone playing keys, just kind of doing volume on that. Right. So I didn't end up really using it for that. But what was so cool about Ernie Ball, and I don't know if I had seen it before at this last NAMM show, I think it's relatively new. They have these pedals now. What a genius idea. It's like a volume pedal, but it's got a fucking tuner on it. Those are so badass, right?
Yeah. Ian in our band uses one of those, actually. Yeah, bass player does.
Cool, man. Yeah. At some point I might get one of those guys. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So tell us everything that's going on with Blackheart Saints, man. I know you guys are constantly busy. You've got all kinds of cool things happening. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me about the band, the formation, when you guys started. Where are you from? How did you get involved in that in music? Just kind of take us back.
Right on. Well, you get a bunch of drug addicts and degenerates and get them in a room together, and there's the band right there. So I met Josh. It's funny enough, like one of those old school posters that they had. So I was actually coming out of a different band at the time. I guess I should say why I'm even in Austin. Let me even rewind beyond that previously. So I'm from Indiana originally. That's where I was born and raised.
Like Guns N' Roses, man. It's already a great rock and roll story.
Michael Jackson was there. You got David Lee Roth. I think he spent some time there as well.
Michael Jackson's from Indiana. That's wow.
Gary, Indiana.
Don't think that. You're right.
Oh, Gary. Okay.
So a lot of people, it's notorious for people being born there and they get the fuck out of there. So that's what I did. So I came to Austin. I had this little band called Foxy Dangerous at the time. It was a female-fronted rock band. We did some cool shit. It was around for about a year in Austin. And we got to open for Slash, and we did some, played San Antonio, Austin, the Central Texas area. But that band broke up, and I was looking to start the next endeavor. And I went to Music Lab, the good old Music Lab, back when there were two different ones in town. I saw Josh had this. I was looking for singers, so I looked at the old school posting, and Josh's flyer was up there, and he had like the little frosted tips going on, and he just looked like totally different from what you might think. But I hit him up.
I resent that frosted tips and like white hair. I resent that now as someone who's going gray.
Well, hey, we're all trying to escape from it.
I love the fact that this is you guys are a true rock and roll band. Like you're rock and roll, like you know what I mean? Like that's the way to describe the band, and you really are a true rock band. And I love the fact that you formed in that kind of way too. Straight up old school at a fucking rehearsal space, saw a flyer. I think we were talking about this recently and that's how it used to be, right? That's how you always found people. There was no online stuff. So it's kind of neat. You found it was an actual posting at a rehearsal space that brought you two guys together.
Yeah, I mean, I've done the Craigslist thing. That's hit or miss sometimes. You get a lot of interesting folks you can lot of interesting situations you can find yourself in with Craigslist, but we won't go there right now. I think we're trying to keep to music. So yeah, we just really hit it off after meeting Josh, and I sent him some tracks, and he, sent me some vocals back, and we got the band rolling. We had different members at the time, so as you've noticed throughout the years, we've had different rotations. But right now, it seems like it's a really good spot where we're at. We got Nate's been in the band for I think probably over 3 years now, and Ian as well. He came along too, and he plays in Finite Fidelity as a guitar player. So yeah, that's kind of where how the band started, and Austin just kind of grew from there. And we end up, you snowball. You kind of play Houston, you play San Antonio, you increase your spread, your empire, as we call it. So we've been doing a couple tours since then, and just trying to do bigger and better every year. So.
Yeah, it's cool too because so Josh Ross, the singer, is from Lake Charles, I believe, right? So it's not too far off, and that kind of gives you a nice path to get going with Houston, Beaumont, and Lake Charles, and getting into with Louisiana, which a lot of us have done that route. And and I know Ian is from Wisconsin, so he's somewhat in your neck of the woods. And what about Nate? Where is he from? Is he local?
He's from San Antonio, actually. So
Okay.
nobody's really from Austin, but this is what we consider home, though. So I'm sure you do as well at this point. But
Yeah, I'm San Antonio too, so it's like right down
Yeah.
the road. But I think, and I kind of moved around a bit. I was in LA for a little bit, and you sort of go like, if I want to be in a Texas base, like Austin's definitely the place. It makes the most sense.
For sure, even geographically, just it's just a great place to be. And I think Victor was talking about being for the Panhandle. Like that's quite a drive up there. That's getting up there.
Hours if you're making a good time. Yeah.
Right. Well, people.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the crowds are awesome in the Panhandle. We played like Lubbock and Amarillo, and people. It is a different culture up there as far as the music scene, and we find people are just they like the rock and roll thing. They go out, they drink, they're beer drinkers. They love a good old rock and roll show.
Well, I remember being younger too, and not that far away, but just in a different part of Texas. And when bands would come through from Austin, it was kind of exciting. It's like, oh, an Austin band's coming to town. And so I think, especially those bands, and I've done like Lubbock and Midland and stuff in country acts, but I've even heard that there's good rock scenes and stuff, and there's good bars and clubs up there. And I think, a lot of times a band comes through from out of town, and we're spoiled in Austin, and we're sort of like, whatever, everyone's in a band here. They play all
exactly.
the time. We're very spoiled. A lot of these other places, it's like, wow, cool. This is like an event,
I think there's like this attitude in Austin that's very it reminds me of LA. It's this sort of, yeah, that's great. You're in a band, even if you're doing well on stage, it's always a friendly competition. We're always looking at our peers and our mates, and we're like, yeah, that's cool. But you just kind of like put on this front sometimes. It's like the LA mentality, I feel like. So
yeah, I agree. There's a fine line, I think, in music and the business of music and the presentation of music. We were talking about this last week with our guest Bobby Bookout, who was talking about just the romanticized, starving artist thing, which is there's something to that. And it's, if you're truly one of those people making it, that's impressive. But it's also like a lot of people, you have day jobs, you do this, you do that, but you have to sort of have a persona, and when you don't just walk on stage and you're pizza clothes and flip flops and play a fucking show. So there's kind of you want to put on that. I don't want to call it a front, but it's an act. It's a show, right? And you need to present it that way. But you also don't want to come off as just a snobby douchebags. So I think there's a balance there,
Right. I can't think of any other career that's like that. If you're an accountant, you're not trying to pretend that you're, a doctor or something like that. So it is a weird, really weird situation that we're in. So
when did the band? So you and Josh, what year was that when you guys met?
That was 2014, I believe. So yeah, it's been we've been going since 6 years pretty much. So yeah, met him. He's just been doing. We've been just writing songs, getting better all the time, trying to be at least. Writing, kind of branching off into new areas. We got a little more southern rock in the last release, and working on some new material as well in the studio right now. That's going to be kind of like running running the gamut from Southern to like heavier, sort of maybe a little Judas Priest influence, which is kind of weird, but it's just going to be all over the place, really, I think.
Cool. And so far you have what's your catalog so far?
Well, so we started off with a 4-song EP, and then just to kind of test the waters and see, we went in with Omar Vallejo at 512 Studios. We've been working with him since day one, pretty much, and he's kind of the fifth member of the band. That's what we think of him as, because he does have a great ear for things, and he influences us, and he always like really challenges us to, I'll be there, like he's got a guitar part in his mind and he's trying to show me this, and it can be frustrating at sometimes, but it's like it's worth the effort to give into that and to try that. So we started off with the EP, then we did a full-length album in 2017, and then we kind of just decided to kind of instead of trying to buck the trend, we wanted to kind of go with where music's at and putting out singles. It's an EP, the last one, but it's still, there's a music video for each song. And then with the Misery EP, everything told a story. So, it would follow the band across a whole day pretty much, so you're traveling on the road and then you stop at the studio, and then at some point you get to the show that you're supposed to play. And so there's kind of some messages along the way and little adventures that we find ourselves in.
I thought that was really cool the way you guys did that. And it was an interesting, like you said, you kind of sometimes things outside of the box. That's really hard to do. I don't even know if that's the right term, but just, it's not as easy now as just then we're going to make an album and we're going to tour. I mean, especially now. Right. But the way you guys did that, I thought was interesting and somewhat unique. And that was is it Taylor Frederick? Is that who you guys work with, who did the videos on that?
Taylor Fredericks. Yeah. We call him T Freddy. You can call him that too, if you'd like. But yeah, he's, funny enough, I've known him since I was 17. Like we were in bands together. He's from my hometown as well. So we grew up together, and we did music, and then he kind of went more into the film world. And so yeah, he's in Austin now, and he's doing the filmmaking thing, and I'm really proud of what he's doing. So
I love how much crossover there is here. And I think when you're a musician or any kind of artistic person, I think that's so common. Like, I think a lot of, guitar players want to be drummers and or want to be a comedian. A comedian wants to be a musician. There's so much crossover between all this. And I know so many people that are in bands that are also in film, or that are, all that crossover. And he's one of them. I mean, the first time I met him, I think was at maybe Skull Mechanics or something. I could be wrong, but I think you guys were hanging out, and I showed up, and Finite was playing that night, I believe, actually. And then I don't know if that got talked about that night or no, but I obviously knew about the film stuff. And then we ended up, the last show we actually played, and of course, a good Rogering has played with Blackheart Saints many times, a few times at Hanover's. But we played with his band, Battle for Austin, or what the fuck are they called?
Oh yeah, Battle for ATX.
Battle for ATX. I was like, Los Angeles.
There you go.
Where it comes from, but Battle for ATX. Dude, they were fucking amazing. I was like, holy shit, his charisma stage presence, that whole show. And I felt kind of bad because I think we did kind of an acoustic Alice in Chains. We did a couple of these little Alice in Chains tribute things. And then Rune Scarred, actually that was Rune Scarred that night. And there was, Transit Method. I don't know if you know those guys. Great.
Oh yeah. Great musicians.
And then Battle for ATX. And I was like, man, what a great lineup. This was, I think, March 14th. So it was right before the shit hit the fan, the world shut down. And everyone was kind of like, that night was like, oh man, fuck it, come in for it, doing the hugs. And some people, oh no, and nobody was masking yet or anything, but we were all kind of sensed like things are about to get a little weird. And anyway, we played that show, and they kind of went on late, and I was just like, sorry, it's, I know it's kind of late, and they fucking killed it, man. And people stood, I think it helps when it's a tribute band, but they fucking owned it and slayed, and he was amazing, man. So props to him on the musicianship as well,
The guitar player, I'm a big fan of him too, just because I paid attention to what he was doing. He really, you could tell he took his time to replicate what Morello, and I'm a big Morello fan. I don't know if are you a big fan of him?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah. And like a lot of guys, I mean, there's very subtle nuance playing. There's a tonal aspect. Especially Morello. I mean, he's got such a unique innovative style that's not something, I think if you really want to be a tribute band and be true to people, you really have to like, if you're going to play the Doors, you don't really do it with like, a Fender Strat or Les Paul. You use an SG, and you really
Exactly.
try to like do what that guy does and try to emulate that style. So yeah, I agree, man. I was really, really impressed with the whole unit.
Yeah, it was a great show. Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
It's the last time you guys played where you have been playing, right? What's going on with that?
So I guess the last big show that we did was the Sturgis rally, and I'm happy to report that no one got COVID. We did get tested when we got back, and I know there's probably some backlash or whatever. I don't know if there is real. I think we stayed under the radar really. There were other bigger bands that were there. Steel Panther played, Dirty Honey.
Yeah, and you guys have played. You guys opened for them here, which was amazing.
That was a great show. Yeah, it was a great show indeed.
Yeah.
But I think we Saliva played, Jackal, they're a staple, obviously, of Full Throttle. That's the venue we played. But it was a great experience just to go out there and I guess there was some risk involved with it, but as a musician, you just got to get out there and do your thing, and you got an opportunity that's in front of you, and what are you going to do, so you got to find a way to make it work. That's at least how I thought of it.
And I think with something like that, that's an opportunity. It's a festival. You want to take precautions and be safe. Hopefully, I don't know what it was like back there behind the scenes. I mean, I finally recently played a few shows with the Invincible Czars, and that's how it was for us. There was, social distancing, some outdoor stuff, wearing the mask, doing the best you can. Sturgis, was that kind of an outdoors thing, or how does that? Are there different stages?
So there were two different stages. So the way Sturgis is like there's different venues that are like in this, small radius. And we were lucky enough to be at the Full Throttle Saloon, which, has the reality TV show. And there's a lot of, the mythology behind it. It was really, it was the first time to play there. We've been to Sturgis before, but this is our first time at Full Throttle. So we got to stay in a cabin there. There's no Wi-Fi. It's like camping, so they put us up in some cabins, and we actually played 9 days straight. So we did, some cover shows here and there. Yeah. So
on the way and back, you just played everything.
So, and originally we were going to try to make a tour out of it, but just due to all the COVID stuff, we just, drove straight up to South Dakota and, did our 9 days and then came right back. So it was interesting going up there because, the more north you get, the less the mask thing was really. Once you like get past Denver, Colorado, you're in Wyoming, you'll notice that, people's attitudes changed about the mask thing. I think it's different right now because, you have a surge going on.
A surge all over the country. But, back then, I mean, we had the initial spikes in the big cities, New York, LA, and then it kind of, it made its way to Texas and then started getting. But I think that area of the country, South Dakota may have been the state. I can't remember. It was one of those Dakotas, I think, that was like the longest running state, maybe with very little cases or no deaths or something. There was something like that. So it seems like it was definitely less of a huge, spiking issue up there, at least at that point.
Yeah. And, we like I said, mentioned, we all, we got tested, everything was fine. But, there weren't a lot of precautions, but I think that's the biker attitude.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a biker rally, man. I mean,
yeah. And, that's the thing.
Know how that's going to go.
Well, yeah.
The nose test.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they put other things up their nose. Yeah, not cotton swabs, I guess. But
I mean, you
did I? Yes, I did. I did. I got that, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought it was going to be. Everybody
sort of like mix it in with the cocaine, or how does that?
That makes it. That helps numb it, I guess. Yeah, it does. It helps it go in there. But it wasn't as bad as have you had one of those tests yet, or
I have not. I may get tested here soon, just because holiday stuff coming up and family and whatnot. But I think they have better ways of doing that now, or is that still a thing?
I think you're right. I think there's a swab that they can put in your mouth at this point. So I think the technology's rapidly changing right now. So
Victor's holding out for the rectal.
yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
probably appeals to certain people, so no harm
That's
in
right.
that.
That's right. The vaccine, yeah, and the suppository vaccine
Yes,
too.
give me the
Yeah,
vaccine.
the swab test. I don't think they're actually touching your brain anymore. Like they don't have to go up as far as is what I heard. So it's just a quick swab. It's like 15-minute result time or something like that. But I mean, kind of going back to that trip to the Dakotas, I would imagine like once you get past Denver, like population kind of is spread out a little bit more, right? So it's not going to be, it's not going to be a pretty populated area like Central Texas or or Padre Island, like all the kids went to and got COVID. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
we spent the night in Wyoming on the way up, and it was just just the four of us. We had a hotel, and there was a pool and a hot tub, and it was like one of the only times you could have a pool and a sauna open, and it was kind of eerie because it was like a town of like 2,000 people, and like we're the only people in this hotel that are right here, so it's kind of creepy, but it was a cool experience.
That's the worst. You're like a rock band partying at a hotel and there's
Yeah.
no there. Like
There's no chicks.
There's no chicks.
Exactly. No drugs, no nothing, just dudes. So yeah, that is a low point in our career, I would say. So
Oh, modern rock and roll. Four dudes in a hot tub on their lap on their phones.
That's the thing. People think it's all, all these glamorous things, but at the end of the day, it's just four dudes just in a fucking hot tub. So
Actually, speaking of that, I've heard legendary stories and I've never seen it personally, but I hear that there's something that the Blackheart Saints touring van is supposed to be pretty hip. Is it like an old school 1970s throwback porno van or some shit, right? What's the deal with that?
I guess the words got around. So the first van, so this is the previous van. So right now we have like more of a modern Chevy van that's, just your run of the mill. It's great and reliable. But before that, we had a conversion van. It was a 2001 Ford conversion van that had like a bed in the back. And yes, we had a VHS player. We had Nintendo 64 ports that were in there too. And we did one of our old drummers, his dad, I guess it was, maybe this belonged to his dad, but he got a couple of VHS tapes of the adult variety, and we would just have these running like the whole time that we're traveling different towns. So it was a great way to break in like new members. Like they'll be, oh shit, they'll see, okay.
You can like find out each other's dick size and like, hey, Nate's popping one off back there. Okay.
It's the same scene over and over again. We just rewind it.
That was like old school porn where everybody was normal size, right?
Yeah, and all the hair was there.
Average dudes.
So average dudes.
Everyone had a fucking mustache. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
those were when men were men. I feel like
that's right.
Of the Ron Jeremy variety.
Yes, the Rom Jeremy. That's right. I'm thinking of Rom
Gov. Rom Jeremy.
Yeah, like there's gonna be a mashup of Rom Gov and Ron Jeremy. I think that'd be awesome.
Whoever listens to this and anyone that's good at Photoshop, I want Rom Gov's head on Ron Jeremy's body.
That'd be awesome. And he's one of the guys. I think he traveled with us one time where we may have broke him in on that as well at one point. So
maybe that's probably where I heard about it. Then
there you go.
That's probably where it came from. I think I must probably talked about it when AGR toured. Now you also, I don't remember. So where did Rom go with you guys? Because I remember he played a TV performance Fox thing or something with you guys.
Yeah, so we did I think it was a morning show, but we also, I think we went to West Texas with him as well. Like we played San Angelo and maybe it was another city. We did like a weekend thing. We did a couple things with him, even an Austin show, but it's been a while since I played with him, but fantastic drummer.
Yeah, he's great, and he's the guy to call if you're in a bind, man. He saved my ass. Same thing. We had a San Angelo gig originally when I kind of reamped a good Raj ring, and then we had some complications, and right off the bat I had some shows and our drummer couldn't do it, and so I was like, so then I hit up Ram, and it was like maybe a week before something, and he was like, yeah, cool, this is what I do. I got you.
There you go.
And then it was something. I was like, well, we're also playing in like 2 days.
Yeah, right.
Our very first show, I think it might have been San Antonio, and then we went to San Angelo, but we murdered it. It was amazing. It was just like really fun and fresh too, because everything was pretty fresh, and Ron came in and killed it, so it was great. But I think we did the same thing. It was initially like a West Texas deal. Was that when you guys were in between drummers, or was that just someone couldn't make the gig or something?
I think we were kind of in between drummers at one point. You know, we had our first drummer was Corey, and yeah, he was a tremendous drummer, but he had to go back to he was from Oregon. He had to go back there for family reasons. So then we had Brandon, and Brandon was fucking awesome. I think we were in a transition between Nate and Brandon or something like that. But yeah, Ram is the guy to call. He's like he's more professional than any of the people in my band. So he'll do his homework. He gets the shit done. But yeah, cool dude, awesome guy.
Rom is the guy that whenever I'm not what I should be, I'm like, I'm not Rom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Human. But yeah, he's great. All right, we'll stop sucking Rom's dick. So
yeah, right. He's got enough of that already. So fuck that guy.
someone put his head on Ron Jeremy's body. That's
Yes.
what I'm trying to get out of this. Tell us about so 2014. Where are some places you've toured? What are some of the favorite places you've been?
So we did a West Coast tour that was pretty interesting. So we went to we played Arizona, we played New Mexico, did the Viper Room is kind of like the highlight of the trip. That was great. They don't pay you very well there, but it was great. It was it was a great trip. But on the way back, we played New Mexico. We played a place that was on an Indian reservation. I thought that was kind of interesting because you contrast that with the rest of the shows that we had, where it's like total partying, all the things you can imagine. But then we pull into a little border town between New Mexico and Arizona, and it happens to be on a Indian reservation or Native American reservation, and there's no alcohol. It's a dry community, and so it was like the one show that was like totally sober and straight, and I think we kind of needed it at that point. So it was cool. They sold their soda and their popcorn, and they treated us very well. It was a great show to play to that small town sort of thing. So.
That's really cool. Is that something that were you guys self-booking that, or was that through an agent? How did that come about?
That was yeah. I actually spent a lot of time booking that, so I'm involved with a lot of the management and the booking of the band, and yeah, that was Gallup, New Mexico. Now that I remember it, but it's always great to have you played out west in like Arizona or New Mexico, or
I've only done East Coast, man, and I was going to finally get my opportunity for that in April, and then COVID happened. So I'm yet to go do the whole big West Coast thing.
Right on.
Yeah, which I would love to do. Tell me about the Viper Room. Obviously, we all know that LA, you don't get paid. If you lose money to fucking buy your tickets up front. I don't know how that worked, or if you guys were opening, or what the deal was. I've also heard I never actually went there, funny enough, living out there, but I heard it's a really small place.
It's a small club, and it's just great. We had a great time there. But yeah, it's one of those things, bucket list things you want to check off and do. It's they do have a back line there, so and then they pull the curtain when you're about to play. They pull the curtain, so there's this little presentation behind it, and that was a great night. And I think we played Vegas after that. Vegas was pretty cool as well. So.
Nice. Where did you play in Vegas? Do you remember?
I think it was called the Dive Bar. It was a Monday night in Vegas, which is probably the worst night you could play, but we made the best out of it. And that's the thing with these tours, like you'll have your lows and your highs, because you have to fill your time up somehow. What are you going to do on a Monday or Tuesday night? So it can be hit or miss, but you make new fans along the way, you make new friends along the way, and that's what's about. So
exactly, yeah. I think realistically, especially when you're a rock band doing a DIY tour, man, you're going to have those certain points and those landmark things, and like you said, playing the Viper Room or the Whiskey, like that's a cool milestone for anyone,
Yeah.
But a lot of these other points, man, you have to accept that and you have to understand that. But I will say too that sometimes playing some of those shows, sometimes you're just like, ugh, but sometimes you play a show for a handful of people, and that handful of people is fucking awesome, and you make fans for life, So I think that those little dive bar gigs can be pretty damn cool and rewarding.
Oh yeah, you definitely make, you just, even if there's two people there, as long as they have a good time, whether there's two people or 2,000 people. And we've done that. We've done the 2,000 people rooms, the two people rooms, and it's just really just the stories that you get along the way, the life experiences, the people that you meet. You'll just find random characters, and that's what I hope to be able to return to. Once this whole, if we can get back to some kind of normalcy where we can have more interaction with people, because I think that's what we need, as just human beings. Is just, I think, and as a musician, I just seek out fun, weird experiences. It's part of life. So
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's funny because I don't know about you, and I think a lot of musicians, and kind of back to the crossover between musicians and comedians and entertainers of all types. I think a lot of times for me, and now I'm like getting to that age where I kind of like I'm like the Boo Radley, just stuck in my cave and fuck off, a little bit. You can do all the Zoom stuff and talk like this, so it's not too bad. But I mean, I was kind of the shy, introverted guy, and then I come out of my shell, and I don't know I love that. Like you're talking about, meeting people and just experiencing things and talking to different people, and that's what I love so much about performing and touring, is that connection. And because you can't get that just with the sort of the day in day out grind in one place. And I think that's one of the coolest things about that lifestyle. There's a lot of hard things that go with it, but that's one of the big rewards, right? And you're right. I mean, right now we can do a lot of things, but that human connection, that in the moment together, kind of in a sweaty room and really connecting with people, it's just not the same. So my suspicion, my hope though, is that when we finally get out of the woods with this, hopefully live music will come back in a big booming way. People will be dying for it, and we'll really have a great surge. And I mean, one could hope that we could go back to the glory days a bit, where
right.
the kind of things that inspired guys like you and I, and I'm sure most of our colleagues, were just that those great days of live rock and roll. Not that it's dead, but it's we all aspire to those moments.
Yeah, and it's just part of being a human being. I think that's what it appeals to us on a more of a base level. It's just this communal aspect of getting together, and it doesn't really always make sense, but it's loud and it's boisterous and it's celebratory, and I think that's what really draws us to it, to what we do, and that's why we play loud music as well. I think we're really in touch with that. There's all the bad things that come with that, the depression, the anxiety, the lack of sleep, the relationship problems, whatever it is, but it's all worth it at the end. I don't know why that is, but it's a kind of a fucked up mentality to have, but I think that we all have that in some degree.
I agree, man. It's that, because it's the release in the moment. You
Mhm.
can't top that high. And that high is like, it's not something that requires any sort of drugs and alcohol. Granted, a lot of times they go hand in hand, but they are not necessarily synonymous, because I know if I'm performing, I've had times where I'm sober, I'm not sober. And I honestly, from a stage standpoint, like I never felt any less. If I was completely 100% sober, I still felt that same high on stage, and interacting and performing.
Yeah, it's interesting how drugs and alcohol play a role in this. It's one of the few professions that it's socially acceptable to be under the influence of something, one or the other. But I think that's the best drug. It's as corny as it sounds. The best drug is that, being on stage and and playing to people and feeding off the energy, and that I don't think anything can really beat that.
Agreed. I think sometimes the drugs come in when you're not doing that, or to kind of cope with some of all the other shit you have to deal with, right? But that part of it is I don't want to say the easy part, but it's the part that you want to do. Like that's what you love doing, right? It's a lot of the other things that are the fucking downers.
I think that's the thing, is like, you come off that great high of like, doing the rock thing, and then where do you go from there? I think your dopamine levels, you just want to keep that going at all times if you can. So I think that's why a lot of musicians will indulge in different things like that, just to keep things like on that same level, because it's an addiction.
That's a really good point, man. Let's talk about, I started the podcast off saying it. Let's talk about some deals, you guys, endorsement deals, artists, like companies you work with. Who are some people that, who are some companies you guys work with?
So recently, Gibson has been really great. They hooked me up with a new SG Modern guitar. So I've been getting an an SG coming from a Les Paul. It's a different feel. As a guitar player, it's a lighter weight, and I really dig this model that I've been playing. So it's kind of like a hybrid SG / Les Paul because it's got the input jack on the side, which I prefer, compared to the regular SG. But so yeah, we've been working with Gibson. Sennheiser is another one. Just got a wireless system that I need to actually use at some point, now. Gator cases, that's another new one. So, protecting your babies, your investments. So yeah, we've been, those have been some companies that we've just started working with during this whole pandemic, I would say. So.
Right on. Yeah. And that Gibson, that's huge. That's awesome. So I'm trying to remember, man, I usually run into you in passing at the NAMM show. Were you, I mean, I'm assuming you were obviously with Gibson this year. Did you guys perform?
We did not. So that's kind of like the start of a relationship with Gibson, just meeting the staff there. And that's kind of how that whole started, just getting, it's like, oh, you're in Austin. Oh, I'm in Austin, so, okay. So you get that conversation going on. And
well, I guess there's going to be no NAMM show in January.
You're right.
What I hear, but I will tell you from the experience I had via Bully Los Buffaloes, who I went with, and we were, lucky enough to perform. Wow, that was quite a fucking experience, man. It was very, very, very cool. I was blown away by the hospitality and everything that they were doing for the artist. And I mean, so congrats on that, man. And hopefully that keeps they're killing it, so that was really, really cool. Maybe we'll end up doing some kind of thing, because I know Bull's got things in the works with them. So
in 2 years from now we'll do something,
like
on the stage.
2025.
yeah, there you go. They had a great stage. They did have a great stage. So I got to meet, it was funny, in the Gibson room. I'm a big fan of the band. Do you know the band Raw? R-A? I don't know if you know that band.
I don't think so.
You should. I'll send you some links later. You should check them out. They're really cool. They're kind of in that new metal era, but the singer is amazing. He sounds like Sting, but then they do like this like Egyptian influenced hard rock metal thing. Yeah, very, very cool band to check out. But I met the singer there. I was kind of a fanboy for a moment, but they had a great presentation there. Great bands that played on that stage.
One thing that I thought was so cool, I mean, they had several Austin artists. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here know Jackie Venison and Emily Wolf.
Oh yeah,
were a few that performed. And but what really I thought was so cool was they have like this kid program. I don't remember what they call it. It's like the G3. I know that's also the Satriani thing, but something along those lines. But man, dude, I was blown away. Like there was a fucking kid up there who's like 11 years old playing Megadeth Tornado with Souls solo and all, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So yeah, it was pretty cool, man. And then they had a big deal at the Grove. Like they always have these big things at the Grove. And were you there? You were there. Yeah, dude. I remember walking around with you at when I think that was the year that or Zach Sabbath played, right?
Yeah, that was that was the Grove. That was a great show. Yeah, I remember that now. I think the first show that I saw at NAMM was 2017 with Buck Cherry played. I don't know if you were at that one, but that was a cool
Grove
show. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. But hopefully they bring that back. I know that they were one of the first events to cancel, their 2021 event. So hopefully we'll see them in 2022. So
yeah, I mean, at this point, that's the best we can hope for. And I think realistically, I think a lot of these people were very smart to project that far out and do it, because look where we're at, and it's absolutely the case. We are in no way near ready for any of those things. I don't think there's going to be a South by as it was or anything like that. No ACL, obviously. NAMM's right around the corner, so just can't do it right now. So yeah, hopefully 2022, man, we'll see each other up there and meet at some killer after parties and all that cool stuff.
Yeah, I guess depends on how next year goes. There's a little talk of another shutdown happening, and I don't know where things are going to go. It's kind of crazy. So
looks like a shutdown is on the horizon for sure. I can only hope that, I mean, it seems contingent on a vaccine, doesn't it? Doesn't that kind of seem like what we're waiting on?
Well,
Otherwise, it just keeps spiking, and we open up, and then it just fucking goes through the roof again.
yeah, I mean that's the thing too. It's really it's a hard problem, and I'm no expert, I'm no medical doctor or whatever. But I think at some point, if if you are gonna shut things down, people need to be taken care of in some way. There's jobs. There's I think what people don't talk about is the mental health aspect of isolation and just shutting things down. And there's a lot that people are deemed non-essential. Well, that if you work in a bar, if you're a musician, still have people that depend on you, and there's a lot of effects to shutting something down. So I think that if that does happen, then there needs to be some kind of safety net for people, whether it's a large check in the mail or something to incentivize that, instead of just say, hey, you can't work and you just don't do shit, just starve. That's the only thing I would say about that. But
Yeah, I agree. And it's like
yeah,
there's so many things I think that, people want to take sides and make things black and white, and it's rarely ever black and white. I mean, these things affect millions of people in all kind of a variety of ways. And you're right, we're not even talking about just the mental aspect of what it does to a person to be isolated like that. So there's so many factors in this, and we don't have to go down the political road, but I mean, the irony of, when things become political and you have bickering politicians, then things are set in gridlock while literally people are dying in the streets and losing their jobs, their livelihoods, everything. It's not easy. These are not easy solutions. So who knows?
exactly. And if you look at the election results, you can tell that the country is clearly divided. It wasn't necessarily a landslide, and that's just interesting to see that. It's like we're in a very unique position right now, I would say. So
Feel free to not answer if you're uncomfortable, but do you have any sort of identification in the political arena?
So that's a very good question. So when I was in college, I studied political science. That was a very an interest of mine. And as far as, so I guess different ways to answer that question is the band as itself. Like, we've been fiercely apolitical, and I know that's kind of unpopular right now, because I know there's a lot of bands that take stands or different messages or things like that, and that's great. That's for them. We've decided to we're strictly recreational. That's what we do. So that's what we specialize in. We take it or leave it kind of thing. So because in a way, like, we all come from different backgrounds, different beliefs, and it's hard to really have a unified, I think a good example is a band like System of a Down, where you have the singer and the drummer have like very, this guy voted for Biden, this guy voted for Trump, and yet they're still in the same band. They make some beautiful music. So we've really avoided wading into those waters, because we feel like we'll give other people that choice to speak. We don't think we're qualified. We don't want you to take advice from us and stuff. I mean, as far as my own thing, I'm a libertarian. So the way that I look at things is I just want, people to do whatever they do, as long as it's not a victimless crime. So I'll say, I am very proud that there is a few states that legalized marijuana. I think that's great. Whether you consume or not, we have to. I think it's important to be on the side of liberty and allowing people to make their choices, as long as you're not hurting somebody else. But if you want to go do something, whether that's get married to this person or smoke this thing or whatever, that's the summary of my beliefs. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
I feel the same way. I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel like kind of exactly what you've been saying is, look, I think there's a balance between, it's like we like to blow things out of proportion, and, oh, well, this guy voted this way, or this guy voted, so he said one little thing, or likes this candidate, so therefore so and so's a racist and so so's a communist. And it's like, no.
Yeah,
It's just like most people just want to get by, live their life, like you said, live and let live. I think we are, I would hope, for the most part, as a collective society, socially evolved far, far beyond what we were, 50, 60, even 30 years ago. you know, and are kind of like live and let live, have your religion, whatever your race, your sexual preference, your gender, all these things just don't, like, agreeing with you. It's like, as long as you're not breaking laws, harming anyone else, you know, directly out, going out of your way to defend other people. Um, so what? Shut the fuck up. Let that person
Yeah.
do what they do and you do what you do. And just at the end of the day, it's like, why is it so hard to just be a kind, decent human being? And I think that, you know, back to the red and blue and the extremes, it's like there can be a balance of capitalism and socialistic ideas too, right? I mean, because you don't want to live in a society where, you know, it's full-blown socialism necessarily, but you certainly don't want to live somewhere either where you're just like, oh well, sorry pal, you didn't have the, you know, have what I have, fuck you, die in the street. You know, it's like, no, we gotta, you know, you, like right now in a pandemic especially, you know, it's not just like the regular homeless, it's like, which is bad, and that's bad already, right? Now we're talking about millions and millions of people without a jobs. You know, there needs to be. Now, I don't know what they are. I'm not a politician, but there needs to be some kind of balance, and you know, in that to help when that is the case. Victor, help. What are your thoughts? You're smart.
Agreed. No,
Oh, great. Okay.
no, I
I thought.
yeah, I kind of think along the same lines, right? Apolitical. I do like the approach that you mentioned, you know, strictly recreational. I think we need more of that because, yeah, you're free to voice your own opinions. I get a little bit tired of folks in Hollywood and in sports, you know, kind of preaching to people or telling people how to think, and that's kind of, I mean, yeah, you have the freedom to say it, you know, uh, more power to you, but at the same time, I think a lot of people are kind of sick of that and people just want to be left alone, right? So live and let live. You know, as long as you're not imposing on me or trying to force legislation to make me think a certain way, you know, have at it. But once you start doing that, then I'm going to push back, right? So yeah, I would say I'm, you know, kind of that libertarian, classical liberal, not a new liberal, but more classical liberal, where you're open to a whole lot of different ideas. You know, just kind of trying to understand and learn everything you can. So,
And that used to be the case with musicians and celebrities. It was like, just stay out of politics and do what you're good at. And I know, you know, there's fair arguments on either side of that. Like people say, well, no, you should use your platform to, well, I'm going to take the Gene Simmons approach. Like I value your dollar more than me giving you my opinion. So if you want to buy a ticket to my show, you vote for who the fuck you want to. I'm going to shut up about that. I'll take your money and we're good. That's my spiel on that.
That's a really good point, though. You know what I mean, and I because I know that and look, I know that I spout off here and there, but I don't think I'm a super politically charged guy. I don't run a super politically charged band or anything. A lot of stuff that I do, you could read into it that way. Maybe I have some metaphorical, political, you know, lyrics, but I usually do it in kind of an abstract way. And when you're at a show, I'm about having a good time at that show. And if I do something, it's usually I mean, I've done a few shocky, antic things, but it's usually not. I'm usually not trying to make political statements, you know. And you're right, because I know I've seen bands and artists that I really like, and sometimes they just start spouting off, and I'm just like, you know what, fuck you. And it kind of puts a bitter taste in my mouth, and I don't care to really listen to them anymore because I'm like, to me, it kind of has this, and it makes you, it comes off as very pompous. You know what I mean?
yes.
And that's back to your point, Victor. I think I see that with a lot of the late night talk shows and a lot of stuff like this. And I'm like, man, we all know this stuff. We all know Trump. Do I even have to go down that road? That doesn't mean that I need to speak. I'm already seeing it on the news. We're already having to live through this shit day in, day out and see him speak and see the news. And it's just a fucking shit show. I want to tune in somewhere and be entertained and get my mind. And then I'll name names. I mean, you go to Seth Meyers, and all it was every time I ever went there was just Trump. I mean, to the point of like, are you running for a Democratic office, or are you having a talk show? Seth Meyers is great. His comedy special was great. He was great on SNL. He's a talented guy. Great entertainer. Love the guy. But at a certain point, and believe me, I'm not a big Trump supporter by any stretch or any of that shit. But at some point, it's just like, Jesus fucking Christ, bro. Like, entertain me, make me laugh. Say so. I'm not tuning into you to hear you
rant.
try to tell me how much I shouldn't vote for Trump for the next 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas on the flip side, like maybe like Jimmy Fallon, of course, the Tonight Show has to play it a little more safe. So I think he's more tactful in the Trump jokes. And I think they're a little more balanced or whatever. So I get that. It's okay. It's part of the job. I don't mind it. I don't even mind if you lean one way or another a bit. But when it's so blatant, we're like, I can put money on the fact that when I tuned into that show, it's just going to be like, man, I mean, if you hate Trump, go watch Seth Meyers. He's gonna, you know, you
Or
might
Colbert, right?
yeah, it's or Colbert. You know, it's the
Or
same thing
Kimmel.
with Fox News. Kimmel, I don't know what it is about Kimmel though. For some reason, I just like Jimmy Kimmel, and
Really?
Trump did do some dumb shit that kind of like he kind of started it or something, and Kimmel was just like relentless, and I was like, fuck it, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, Kimmel lost me a while back, but I mean, it's just he's kind of got that preachy tone. I mean,
All do, yeah.
They all do. SNL is probably one of the worst. You know, when
Horrible,
Clinton lost,
embarrassing. It was
that
embarrassing.
that presidential race in 2016. You know,
Crying.
it came out.
Yeah.
I can't remember what her
Playing
name was.
piano. It's
crying
like fuck
basically.
off, bunch of pussies.
Yes.
For real, man.
But the only highlight was Bill Burr's monologue a couple of weeks ago, where he just roasted everybody, and you just kind of feel like the audience was just like, I kind of want to laugh, but I don't
Chappelle
want
too,
people
man.
to out
I mean,
me and put
Chappelle
my name on a
hosted
list.
again after, and god damn it, man, those guys are the goats for a reason. They don't. I mean,
Yeah,
they cry. I feel like the comedians are the most honest people in the whole fucking country, man. They really are.
absolutely.
The only ones that can say what a lot of the rest of the people think and get and somehow get away with it. Well, anyone else would just be crucified and lose their job, and Chappelle and Bill Burr can come out to me like, take that. You know what I mean? We're like, yeah.
Well, and I think people try to take them down. They just don't give a shit, right? Because they just
They're
work for
so big
themselves,
and they're so popular, like they're kind of above it. And
Yeah.
thank God, you know.
Well, I think it was like Chris Rock when he was supposed to host the Oscars, and was it Chris Rock? No,
Kevin Hart.
what's the other guy? Kevin
Hart was like the
Kevin Hart,
nicest,
yeah.
fucking coolest, likable dude ever. And he had a tweet 10 years
Yeah.
prior, and then they tried and they fucking canceled his shit, you know? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, the example I think of with that is Eddie Murphy. Like, he's this huge, untouchable star, right? Think of Delirious and think of Raw and the things that he said back then. You cannot say those things now, you cannot say them, right? And if someone just can't, but he did, because that was a different time, right? And it's like there was someone talk about this, and you kind of have to put things in perspective like that and go like, you can't crucify someone that did something 30 years ago because it's not relatable to the perceptions and knowledge or however you want to, you know, what is socially the norm now, you know. There's obvious things like you don't want to be like a massive bigot or homophobe or racist, but I think I was just when we were in the 80s. I mean, Mark, you might have
I was born in the 80s.
Born. Victor and I were, you know, old enough to, you know, I don't know.
Wear the parachute pants.
Ride bikes around. Yeah.
Is it too short on your
That's right. Yeah, I had all those old school
Yeah.
late 80s rappers on my book covers.
That's the thing with today too. You know, with Facebook and social media giving everybody a platform, everybody thinks they are, you know, a celebrity and that they are entitled to. I don't know. A lot of times, like with Facebook, I have to shut it off because I feel like people confuse Facebook for a therapist or a diary, and they want to post 5 times a day about, you know, all the things that have happened. You know, whether they're, you know, they woke up and they fell out of bed, or they stubbed their toe, or they had a bad experience at McDonald's that morning. It just seems like, you know, we're feeding an echo chamber of people, and where they just get to run their mouths and say all the things. And we don't really interact with that way in person. You know, like if you're you're not really going to be that hardcore with somebody in person with your opinion. I think we're going to be able to really level with each other and understand and communicate better. If I can talk to somebody in person versus text, for example, can be very heated sometimes or misinterpreted. But if I can have a beer with you and sit down, I feel like you get more things done, and you feel more a common ground that way.
Absolutely, man.
You mentioned the text, and I think to a Key and Peele sketch. Yeah. Where he's like with the two buddies that are texting each other. One's taking like the text out of context, and he's getting so pissed off, like he's going to kick his ass. They're going to meet at a bar because he thinks he wants to fight. And the other guy's like, oh yeah, I don't care. Let's just meet for a drink, you know, real casual. And so I mean that perfectly illustrates like the whole social media texting, just just everything wrong with social media. There's some good things that you can do with it, but yeah,
It's a great example for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really how you choose to use it. But I mean, yeah, the trolls are the worst, because you got these guys that, are they going to really stand up to you in real life? And anyone can sit in their mom's basement and shit all over anybody and play tough guy, across
Yeah.
the country. Was this great in that kind of what you were saying, Mark? Like there was a Louis C.K. bit where he was like, I think he was talking about driving and the things you say. And he's just like, and like someone like, like cut me off a little bit. And he's like, I fucking hope you die or whatever.
Yeah.
Like made me do this for like a half a second. Or there was something else too, where he was talking about, I don't know if it was that same bit or something where he goes like, the way you talk to people, maybe it was a social media thing, but you would never do it in person. He's like, if someone got a little too close to me in an elevator, I wouldn't look at them like, fuck you. It's like,
Louis C.K. He's an interesting guy because I think his downfall happened. I think if I'm right, is right before the whole Weinstein thing, and I think look, I think there was a difference between what he did versus some of those other guys. Obviously, there it was creepy either way, but there was one thing that's clearly assault versus one thing that's a guy being an asshole, and I don't know. I hope he is able to return at some point. I think before we connected out here, we were just talking about the Jeffrey Toobin thing. That guy got fired. So
Yeah.
people, we're if you really think about it, we're fucking animals, and people do stupid fucking gross shit. I'm gonna go scratch my ass probably after this interview, but so that's the thing is like we just all do stupid shit, and guys are pretty stupid most of the time. So hopefully he'll be able to return. I don't know. That's my little thing on
I
him,
agree. And with most things, it's like most of us don't. Back to social media, right? Once upon a time, you'd read something in the paper, you'd see it on the news, and you'd discuss it in your little circle of friends, and maybe gossip could spread to a degree. But now, when anything happens and it blows up all over social media, and we are all running on assumptions, we are all running based on something we've seen on a meme or from some chopped up half-bit soundbite report. How many of us know the truth on so many things? And I think that's a big problem, we will just go full in on something without knowing a single fucking fact about any of it. So who knows with any of that stuff? But I think you hear enough information, and yes, I mean, let's assume, there's definitely a big difference between some guy, that's having women sleep with him for parts or whatever creepy shit this Weinstein guy did, as opposed to Louis C.K. just being a fucking weirdo that wants to pull his.
Yeah.
Again, it's not justifiable, but it's weird.
Wants to pull a Toobin.
But yeah, there's certain lines you just absolutely don't cross, period. And then, but like you said, I think a lot of times people will do something stupid, say something stupid. God fucking knows I've done some shit that I'm so ashamed of, And if I ever, got into
Let's
politics,
talk about that.
Yeah. Well, no, if I ever got famous or if I ever got into politics, it would come out. Nobody gives a shit when you're not famous, right?
I know.
But as soon as you're in the limelight, then they'll go, get all the dirt under the fingernails. So, and the reality is though that's being a human being. I don't think anyone really has a perfect track record. Maybe there's a few saints out there, but sometimes the most, you got that preacher a little while back that filmed a video of him fucking two dominatrix chicks on an altar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That celebrity preacher that just got fired up in New York. He has the David Koresh, those glasses that are coming back that people are wearing. The wireframe
Coke bottle glasses.
yeah. What's that dude's name? Like he was a celebrity preacher. Like all the stars in New York went to him. I can't remember that dude's name off the top of my head, but he got busted cheating on his wife or something. He got fired, but.
It's always those folks, isn't it? It's
well, the more you suppress something, I think the more you're almost asking, like you can only bottle something up for so long. So you set up unrealistic expectations too, right? This old fire and brimstone way of living, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And not saying that just because I wasn't allowed to have sex doesn't mean I would have some desire to go touch little boys, but you're certainly not helping the cause when you're like, you can't do this and you can't do this and you can't do this. And then all of a sudden people are surprised when some guy goes fucking batshit crazy and, gets caught soliciting a prostitute.
That's the thing about religion. I grew up in kind of, under Catholicism, and now I don't identify under any religion. I would almost be so bold to say I'm an atheist, but that would, alienate some people as well. That's where we go with this thing. Like, people have these labels, and I don't know where they go with that thing, but there's a lot of tribalism with how the country is too. You identify one way and then like fuck everybody else. And I think if we could be more open about our conversations and just be open to other people's ideas. It seems like a really basic thing, but I think we're still lacking that in some sort.
I know. The irony is that every time we have someone on this podcast, like, that's kind of usually what everyone says. And I think that a lot of people believe that and think that. And it really, a lot of it just comes down to actually, like you said, the human connection, sitting down and talking to someone as opposed to having some, and I've gone out of my way to sort of mend some things that were based on a few posts and a snarky comment where I fuck you and we're done. And you're a horrible person. I thought I knew you, but I don't, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? But it's because people are just on 10 right now. We're bottled up. There's been all this racial turmoil, civil unrest, rioting. We're in a pandemic. Trump's the president. It's been a nightmare, and people are just losing their shit. But I think, like most people, I think there's a lot of good, logical people that think just like we were talking about, that have just kind of gone off the rails. And you when you sit there in that fucking bubble, like you said, in that little echo chamber on your whatever your social media platform is, you start kind of spiraling out of control, and you're not really that person. I think, sadly, some people are, but I think I would like to hope that most people are not. I think most people probably identify a lot with the kind of rational, in my mind, things that we're saying,
I agree. Yeah. It's crazy.
We haven't really had a political discussion on here in a while. So,
right. Yeah. The thing is, I do try to avoid it, but, props to anybody, that wants to, talk about that stuff. I'll talk about it at, at some length or whatever, but I feel like I have a pretty reasonable viewpoint of it. I don't think it's too extreme, I don't know, but.
Oh, we're just, once we edit the podcast, and it'll be awesome. It'll be like, Mark, John, love Alex Jones. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Especially in Austin. Yeah, that guy. Hey, this InfoWars, PrisonPlanet.tv is Alex Jones. You got to buy my vitamin supplements. Come on, guys. You got the QAnon. Hillary Clinton's running a reptilian laboratory out of her pizza parlor.
What was the Bohemian thing that he talked
Bohemian Grove. You gotta order my protein powder. It's gonna save you when Biden locks the fucking shit down again. Come on now.
That's awesome.
That's entertaining, but I think Alex Jones is kind of like the Jerry Springer thing. Like, it's not real. It's absurd, right? It's a shtick. But it's, yeah, and I get it. It's freedom, right? So fine. But the problem is that you actually have people that believe this crazy shit, and that's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, some conspiracy theories, I guess, have turned out to be true, but some are not. So that's that. But I think he does definitely play to that certain audience that latches onto anything. So you kind of have to, like, hopefully whoever's listening to him can have other, sources. You got to look at all the sources to really make up your mind about what's really going on. I think really the truth is somewhere in the middle sometimes. I think for example, the whole Epstein thing I think it's very fascinating. I'll go on record saying I don't think the guy killed himself. I think I'm very suspicious of how that all went down. I don't know. Now, then again, I don't know who's all involved. I'm not going to make any assumptions that it was, this person or that person, but I do think it's a very interesting situation.
Yeah. There's a Netflix special on Epstein, and I tried watching it, and I couldn't get through the first episode because it was really,
I watched it.
It was really
fucked up,
tough,
man.
Yeah. It was really tough to get through. And so, I'm right there with you. I don't believe he hung himself. There was somebody posted a picture of him that had an eye voting not too long ago.
I saw that.
I was like, oh, it's brilliant. But yeah, as far as conspiracy theories, there's got to be some truth to some of those. I think some of the ones that Alex Jones had talked about turned out to be true. I think he was on Rogan podcast not too long ago, maybe last week or a couple weeks ago, and Rogan was like, "Man, all this shit you've been talking about, it was true."
What are some examples
And,
of that?
what were they talking about that turned out to be true? I have to go
Is
back
the
and listen to
reptilian?
it. It's been like
The
a couple of
reptilian
weeks.
one, did that turn out to be true?
What is that about?
I don't know if they got to that one.
Well, so to summarize that one, that's basically that there are reptilian humanoids. So either aliens or extra terrestrial beings of some sort that are that live amongst us and are in positions of power. And like for example, the royal family in England have been alleged to be these people, and that they have a secret agenda to where they're directing humanity. So yeah, that's a lot. That's a hard pill to swallow, right? I mean, that's pretty.
There was a before you were born and Victor and I were kiddos. I remember vaguely there was a show on television called V. Do you remember that, Vic?
Yes.
And I think that was the thing, right? They were like lizard people.
Yes.
They were lizard people wearing human skin. And there was another show called Project Blue Book that it was fictional, but it was based on an actual government program called Project Blue Book that investigated UFOs, like Air Force. Yeah. So really fascinating stuff. Yeah, I know he's gone into the lizard people on one of the podcasts where Eddie Bravo was on there, and they were talking about flat Earth and cloud or chemtrails or something. But I don't think he went into it this one. Tim Dillon was the comedian that was on there. I can't remember. They were talking about Bohemian Grove for sure. And there was some other stuff that I can't remember. It was one of those where they were just kind of hitting all these different subjects. And so it was kind of hard to keep track of. So I'll have to go and listen to it again. But it's like 3 hours and change.
So to come back around to the band, what I gathered from all this is that the success that Blackheart Saints has had is based on the fact that you guys are involved with the lizard people cult that are sort of opening those doors for you. Is that accurate?
That's right. So and you have to pay the piper, as they say. So we like most, you got to take turns. So we had Nate recently. He had to go to bed with a reptilian person. They did everything they wanted to him. So you just have to take one for the team sometimes. You just got to be part of that evil New World agenda just to get ahead.
Like Eyes Wide Shut, but with lizards.
Yes, and their tongues work very well. So no qualms about that.
Not a bad. So it's not all bad, actually.
It's not. You feel bad afterwards, but during it, you feel pretty good. So Are
your girlfriends cool with it? Do they understand that that's just part of the business?
Or? Well, hopefully they don't watch this show. So
you're very lucky to know that they definitely will not sit through this podcast. So.
Well, can we edit this? We can edit this out then, right? We won't involve them in this. So.
We're just going to send it to Alex Jones.
Right.
There we go.
Well, hey, I mean, he lives here and Joe Rogan lives here now. And, it's close. We're getting all these California people coming to Texas, because it's a great, we don't have any income tax. So I think that's part of it, so.
Yeah, it's crazy because California, I love it. I love the weather. I love a lot of things about it, but I understand, why. I mean, there's the cost of living is insane,
Yeah, that's the thing too about the whole coronavirus thing. I think I have seen a lot of the industry move to Austin or Nashville, from New York or LA. There's a lot of booking agencies and just people that are traditional record label or A&R people are coming to Austin or Nashville because it's more affordable and it's not fucking on fire all the time like California as well. So
yeah, imagine that. And then I know like a lot of those guys were talking about just the kind of going back into the politics, just I guess they've taken the lockdown a little more. They're a little more strict with the lockdown, so they can't do as much stuff, or basically they're pretty limited on what they can do. So that was another reason. There's another comedian that moved to Austin, or that's moving to Austin. God, what is his name?
You said Bill Burr. Was it Bill Burr?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was Bill Burr. It was what is the dude's name? Ron White.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's moving to Austin.
he's a
Was he
Texas
not out?
guy too, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think so. Yeah.
I wish Joey Diaz would move to Austin. You know,
Oh,
Joey Diaz,
yeah.
cocksucker.
Okay, from
He's from Jersey originally, I thought, and I think he
Yeah.
went back to Jersey. Yeah, because he was in L.A. and so when Rogan took off, Joey Diaz was like, "Fuck it, I'm going too." And I think a lot of that crew that Rogan hangs out with that lives in California, like Brendan Schaub or whatever his name is. I think he's moving. Maybe, I don't know. But
raise the rent across the board around here. I need to slow it down, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, when did you say you came here? Because it has just blown up, man.
About 10 years ago, I moved to San Marcos first. I was there for about a year, and then moved to Austin, and just this is home since then, so. But yeah, it's it's great too, like the weather here, like I'm coming from growing up with the snow and shoveling the snow, like there's none of that around here, and so it's just great to be in a place that has like but it can get really hot during the summertime as well. It can get a little too, you get your balls sweat happening and all that stuff, which I don't like. So right now it's like the perfect time of year, I feel like, in Austin.
Summer's the perfect time to go for a run on Town Lake.
Yeah, depends what kind of shorts you're wearing, what kind of underwear you have, what kind of fabric you're working with down there.
Well, if you're a lizard person, you don't really have balls, so it's a little easier.
So it's all on the inside then, right? Like it's like with men with our feelings, we just keep it all bottled up inside, just like reptilian genitals.
Yeah, I think we see what's happening
Right.
here. All these cold-blooded creatures are moving here and taking over our town. It all makes sense.
Could be, yeah. I think that makes, Joe Rogan, he's probably a reptile guy as well.
Definitely reptile. Friends with Alex Jones. Well, wait a minute, that doesn't check out because Alex Jones is calling out the reptiles, right?
Well, you got to keep your enemies closer. That's what he's doing.
Sense, yeah.
It's part of the reptilian conspiracy. You got Hillary Clinton running a pedophile ring in Austin, Texas.
Man, I am so down with the rest of this podcast just being you impersonating Alex Jones. That's fantastic.
Got to get your B vitamins. You got B12, B5. You got to get it all. Protein shake. PrisonPlanet.tv.
That's great. That's great.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Oh, we have, I think I mentioned, Victor, we have a guest coming up, Rob Dew, who, maybe it's probably going to be confidentiality shit, man. He's probably going to be like, I can't talk about it. I feel like we might be a case where it's like, I can't talk about anything. So tell us about what you do, Kant. I think he works with Alex Jones, like in some capacity as a camera operator, show production or something, but
that's cool.
I can't wait to talk to him. We might not be able to air the episode, but it'll be interesting.
Maybe he's involved with the supplements that he sells on his website. Could be.
Clearly a fucking lizard. That's gonna be the first thing I should. When he comes on the podcast, I'm like, yo, are you a lizard person?
Right on.
Maybe we can start getting sponsored by the supplements. Just kind of hold it up before the podcast. Prison Planet.
That's
protein.
Idea's good there. What's next for Blackheart Saints? I mean, you're in the dark cult of the lizard people, doing the Eyes Wide Shut parties. What's next?
So
Where do you go from here?
Well, that definitely helps. So next week we're going to go to Sweetwater Studios and do work on some new music that's over in Indiana. Funny enough, where it's like 40 degrees, I think right now. So we're gonna do that next week. We're doing a master class session with Sweetwater Studios, and we've actually also been in the studio with Omar, working on some follow-up. So we're really just kind of, stockpiling a bunch of songs and, kind of seeing where we're wanting to go with this. Like as far as music video, you got to have a video for everything these days. So I think what we're going to do is just, get the music videos done, and then release that. And we're going to have like at least, 2 or 3 releases throughout the year and do that cycle that we know, with radio and, Spotify and all that kind of thing. So,
who do you guys distribute through? Is that, it's independent, right? You're not through a label. Do you like CD Baby or TuneCore or something?
It's independent, but I do recommend TuneCore as a distributor. I think they've always been, I've been using them for a few years now, and I mean, we even have people that are local, like Amy. She works locally with TuneCore, and just great service. Haven't had any complaints. I know there's a lot of competition right now. You have CD Baby, you have DistroKid, you have a couple other ones that are out there right now, but so far I've had a great experience with TuneCore, I would say.
I know Bull uses them and has raved about them, and I think had them sponsor the live show that we did and everything. What is it about them particularly that you like, or you just had good experience? And
Well, I think if you look at, I was just watching a video. Funny enough, I have a new friend, Damian Keys. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a YouTube guy, talks about music marketing and stuff. Really cool guy. You should check him out. But he kind of had a video about the comparison of the different services, and TuneCore is a little more expensive compared to the other ones, but it's just reliable. Like they're getting your stuff into every store. I know people primarily will, be on Spotify or Apple Music, but just the ease of use of getting your songs where they need to be, I would say.
interesting. That's cool, man. And then, so in terms of obviously working with Omar Vallejo here in 512 Studios, which, we did a live thing over there with them, the 512 Studios Live, which was a great experience, man. Super pro, really on top of it. I thought it sounded great, turned out great. So in fact, I had talked to him about doing something, and then the whole pandemic happened. I just really haven't followed up. But yeah, I dug that place, man. And I know obviously a lot of people here work with him. But you're saying the Sweetwater thing, that's in Indiana, so you guys are traveling up there. Did I hear that right? Is that accurate?
So we're flying up there actually, next week. And so we're going to do, I guess, two things, basically. We're going to shoot a performance video there. And then the primary reason that we're going to be there is to do this a masterclass session. So basically, we're going to be in the studio working with a producer. And then there are people that have signed up to watch or to kind of participate in a way and learn how the recording process works. So for example, if you're like, it's probably more appealing to somebody who's learning that, like if you're a student or something and you want to learn how to record a real rock and roll band. So we're kind of a guinea pig in a way. So people will be taught how to work with a band, how to, all the intricacies with the recording the band, comping, mixing, mastering. So it's like an educational program.
It's really cool, man. And now is this, it's the band, all four of you guys, and then like an engineer or two or something, or is it? How is that?
So we're working with their in-house engineer, Sean Deely, and so he's got a pretty good track record, and people have signed up. I don't know how many people have signed up, but I'm surprised that they have. But
what's the cost of that?
So it was $600, I believe, to sign up for this. So. I'm surprised that anybody would pay to hang with a bunch of assholes like us, to do that. But I guess there are people. They're lizard people, probably.
So is now is it it's a 1 day thing or over a course of several days, or how does that work?
It's a couple of days, so we're just gonna be up there for a couple of days, and then they, I think we fly out the day that they do the final like mixing and mastering. So hopefully they do a good job with all that, because we'll fly right back and beat everybody up. So
this is actually this is going to be a real track. Like this will be a Blackheart Saints track that you're doing. Oh wow.
There's two different songs. We have two songs prepared, so we'll see how it goes, but we're prepared for two songs at least. So
wow, man. How did that come about? How did that where did that come from?
So my hometown is Fort Wayne, Indiana, and growing up there, Sweetwater, which you guys know Sweetwater is, but that was like a smaller company at one point, So I remember growing up, we had a Guitar Center, and then there were the mom and pop music stores, and then those eventually, got shut down because of Guitar Center, and then now Guitar Center is getting challenged by Sweetwater. So it's kind of funny to see. Not funny, but it's interesting. There's a lot of this. It's hard to hang on to business, but Sweetwater since then has really grown into this massive thing. So last year, this kind of started when we had a tour, and we were able to stop in Fort Wayne and play the show, and we were given a tour of the campus, and it's sort of like the Apple campus. That's how I would compare it to, because you have like food, entertainment options. There's the retail store. There's you can get a tour of the facility where they have this massive warehouse and the studios. So it's like a musician's paradise. So we kind of got the ball rolling by, meeting the people there at Sweetwater, and then and just went from there. And we were actually going to do this earlier in the year, and then it got rescheduled due to the whole COVID thing. So now we're just going to fly out there and do it.
Very cool. And what days are that? Now this doesn't air in real time, obviously. So I don't know if we're talking about something that just happened.
So yeah, that would be November. I think it starts on the 19th technically for the students. I think it's actually sold out right now, but yeah, we start on the Thursday. It's the first day of tracking.
Okay, cool. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been really impressed with those guys. I ordered a couple of pieces of kit. I think my audio interface and maybe this mic.
Great service.
They'll
call you up. You get assigned a personal engineer, and it's kind of, I am very impressed by their customer service. I think it's like hands down, just like, because they'll call and check up on you. Hey, how's that piece of gear working out for you? It's like, oh, great. You give a shit. Okay, cool.
Yeah. That was really cool. Yeah. I was really impressed with those guys.
Hell yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, and despite everything going on with COVID, I mean, their shipping was really quick, fast. If it's in stock, you'll get it like a couple of days, maybe.
It's freaky. It's funny. Like the owner of the company went to the same high school that I went to, so I think I got to meet him once. But if I get to see him, I'll have to bring that up again. So, but he started the company in basically the back of his van, and now he's like. He's bigger than the mayor in that town now. He's got a private helicopter. The guy could do, like, if I was in that position, he's a very nice guy, genuine. He'll actually, you can email him and he will respond to you, like the CEO of this company. I feel like if I was in that position of power, I probably would do all kinds of crazy, weird shit, like just go to all the strip clubs in town. And I don't know. I'd probably be dead by now, but that's why I'm just a guitar player in a shitty rock and roll band. So,
I mean, you say that, but where I was going to follow up what I was about to say in regards to what you just said about sort of being in that position, to me, and I get it. I get when people are like really famous. Like, I don't expect to like be able to fucking email James Hetfield and get a response. That's ridiculous. You got to go, even when you try to, even like management at that level is like, excuse me, how did you find me? Like, it always kind of irks me a little, and I've become way more self-conscious of this, where I try to respond to people and I try to be, I mean, sometimes things slip through the cracks and it happens, but because it really does suck when someone doesn't get back to you, and it kind of leaves sort of a pompous like vibe, and you're like, yeah, I know you're a little on the higher up, but fuck you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really cool. Like, and that's the case with bands or CEOs and companies. I mean, depending on how big you get, but I think that's amazing, and that's such an important thing to me. When the people that I work with, a lot of times those kind of people, regardless of who they are or what they do, like, I just think that says a lot about a person's character when you can email somebody. And look, I know you're busy, I know you're like you're famous or whatever, but the fact that someone is cordial enough, takes the time enough to say, hey man, great to hear from you, how you doing, like, it just means a lot. You know what I mean? I have a lot more respect for someone like that. So to hear that makes me look at a company like that and go, wow, that's really cool. It immediately puts it in a positive light for me.
And I think people like that, there's a reason why that they are at the top, because they do take the time to do stuff like that. And they're hardworking. I want to live to that example if I can even just get even a little close to that. But, and that's people like that have that work ethic where they will do those things because they give a shit, and they care about just how they're seen, and I think they're thankful of where they're at, and they get that. That's really cool to see somebody who acknowledges, yes, I did do a cool thing, and I'm going to still be down to earth and be a cool dude. So
I also think that kind of, you can somewhat draw a line between that and what Victor was saying earlier about just the celebrities, and sometimes how, and at least to me, I think it can come off so smug and arrogant, like almost like you're being talked down to, like we're just the dumb little peons that don't know any better, and they have to spoon feed us their politics because we're too stupid. And no wonder a lot of like, middle class Americans are very against that. And it doesn't surprise me that Trump won in 2016 for that reason, because I think it does come off like that. And I think whether it's someone like that or, I just think it just says a lot about a person. And to take the time to do that and to be humble is like, I know it sticks out of my mind with so many guys I met. I always use Dweezil Zappa as an example. When the first time I saw him here at Stubbs, he jumped off the front of the stage after the show and fucking said, "Hey, I'm going to hang out. Anybody wants to come talk to me?" And this is fucking Frank Zappa's son, for fuck's sake. He just played one of the most amazing, mind-blowing things I've ever seen in my life. Jumps off the stage, shakes everybody's hand, signs anything for a long time, like literally like as long as it took. And I was like, I just like already was like holding this guy in like high regards, but now I'm just like even bigger fan, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So I think that like as someone who's a rock musician, right? Like that's the biggest thing, like regardless of how big or small you get, right? Because sometimes you, in your mind, we all know we struggle with this. Like you might be thinking like, oh, this is a terrible show. I suck. Why do I do this? And then someone comes up and they're like, wow, you're all my favorite band. You're so amazing. That was so great. And and you're like, it makes your day. And you should never forget that. You should never forget where you come from and what you mean to other people, and never have that aura of like, oh, I know, kiss my fucking boot. You know what I mean? I fucking hate that shit. That's like my biggest pet peeve, man. I can't stand arrogance,
I think there's fringe benefits to that too, because how else are you going to meet like the hottest chick in the audience, and you're not going to get to know her, and she might want to. You might be so charming to her that you go off and do your thing. So I think that maybe there are some the hidden benefits to being to acknowledging all your fans, because they might really dig you in more ways than one. So
yeah, human connection, man. It really, really does go a super long way. And I think, especially for I think musicians who are out there kind of grunting it out on the road and stuff, you got to remember that. And because you never know when stuff is going to come back around. Just like this dude in Sweetwater. I mean, who's like from your home. It's such a small fucking world,
it is.
And also kind of I started saying like, you kind of played it down, but as just the guitar player, but you do a lot of business, and props, man, because I know it's not easy. And I think Blackheart Saints is definitely one of the bands that has, at least from what I see, you guys have achieved quite a lot and done quite a lot. You opened up for Steel Panther, you've done some touring, you played some festivals and big shows, you've got endorsement deals, the thing with Gibson. So, and I think a lot of that probably comes from, you collectively, but I think you do a lot of that business stuff. So a lot of it does come back to being personable, talking to people, taking the time, being approachable, blah, 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 all these kind of things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's a lot of, it's just what you got to put a lot into it, and you might not see that immediately, but for one, that's an investment in the future, and also it just gives you a purpose to advance whatever it is you're doing, and it's not just about self-benefit, but it's about, enriching yourself with people that you're around, so whether, you meet somebody who's, whether they're a prospective business partner or not, that, it's always good to expand who and to be, just be open to whatever things may become. You could meet a great friend, you could meet a great business partner, you could just have a good time having a good conversation. So that's kind of like what I'm about, like, just see where things go. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I think it's so cool. Like one thing I say it probably every week, but this podcast is so cool too, because at this point I've been around and played with different people and have had my band and done all these things. And it's just like, I've met so many people, in the course of doing that. And especially right now, we're not out seeing each other. We're not seeing each other at gigs, but being able to just catch up and talk kind of in a different way than we normally would too. Like a really one-on-one, getting to know you conversation, catching up conversation, whatever the case may be. And I think it's like every single person I meet, it's fascinating to me, like how, I wouldn't have known the Sweetwater thing. I wouldn't have known a lot of these things. It's like everyone has like such a network and has value and has, it's just amazing. Right. And so I think the more you kind of realize that and see that and grow that, the better, let's bring up Stacy right now, because photographer that we have both worked with. How did that? Oh, we were talking about when we first started, or before we went on the air. I said on the air. I said
on the line, right?
Because I was asking about the photos and how you guys met, right? So yeah, tell us about God, I'm losing my train of thought here. Where am I talking? Tell us about that and what you guys got some photos done recently or something.
Yeah, so we played I think it was the last Austin show we did, funny enough, was Empire Control Room in February. And it was a great show. And Stacy was there, and she we didn't even, I didn't meet her before that, but she took some really phenomenal I was just blown away by the quality of her work, and some really great live shots. And so we just always have, since that happened in February, we were, we wanted to get some new studio photos done to promote the new record and everything like that. So we thought of her first and called her up, and we had a couple of different concepts, and we did like a 2-location shoot. And yeah, she's just phenomenal. Like some of the best photos we've really done, and I'm very, very impressed by her work, guys. So I'd recommend her to anybody.
Yeah, she's awesome. And Stacy Lovett, I should say her last name.
Yeah, that's
And I trying to think how we initially met now, and I honestly can't really remember, but we had played a show at Rockbox in San Antonio. I think it was opening for Marty Friedman or something, and it was one of those kind of cool shows. She was there, took some photos, did a write-up on the band, and I was just like, wow, this is so good. And I've talked to her, become friends with her. She's come and shot several things, and I actually referenced some of your photos for the band that I just did, called No 10 Gods, that we're finishing up some recordings that we just did a bunch of shots, and she did a bunch of product shots and everything. But I think she's great with that too, the hustle and the networking, and very unassuming and very cool. But like, man, at the end of the day, like the word gets around. It's good work, And I mean, you guys have did you work with Kaylee Rose is another one with Drift? Did you guys have she's great photographer.
She's great as well. Yeah, there's some really great talents that we've had the pleasure to work with. Like Rudy Arocho is another good name. He did our last shoot. But yeah, there's just really great people to work with. And it's just great to try different concepts out and to work with people that can take your vision and then they just elevate it and do it beyond your wildest dreams.
Faux shiz.
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, we ran a little. I mean, we can keep going. Obviously,
we could talk about reptiles. We could talk about reptile women. We could talk.
There you go. Oh, reptile women. How do reptiles do? How does reptile genitalia work?
Well, skunk, when two reptiles love each other, this feeling happens where one becomes a little more rigid than the other one, and these secretions soon follow, and now you have little baby reptiles will soon sprout forth out of the wellspring of the reptilian orifice, and that's what gives us all of our politicians that we have in the world.
Bravo. Wow. We were getting some great insight out of this podcast. I got some reading to do, clearly. I have
some studying. Yes.
Oh, man. Little did I know. It all kind of really makes sense now, this reptilian race of people that are kind of... Hey, do you guys remember that other movie? It wasn't Reptiles, but it was classic John Carpenter. I think it was called... What's it called?
They Live.
They Live. Yes.
Yes, with Roddy Piper. And
Keith David. Greatest fucking fight scene ever. It's like they have like a 25-minute fight in the alley.
Yeah. Well, Keith David was in another Carpenter movie. He was in The Thing.
It's one of my favorites, man.
Oh, it was a great movie.
It's a great one. Great one.
Yeah. Kurt Russell.
It holds up.
Yeah, I haven't. They came out with another one like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's supposed to be like it's supposed to be like a prequel to the 1982 Kurt Russell one. Like the original team that finds it. But I haven't seen it. But man, that old Kurt Russell, Keith David one holds up.
That's one of my favorites, man. John Carpenter's, I mean, he's got some classic movies. I mean, even though Escape from New York is a bit goofy, it's still cool. Now, Escape from LA is, I don't know what happened there, but that's a great movie to just watch.
That could be a documentary right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is a documentary. Escape from LA to Austin.
That's right. Yeah.
I think there was some artistry behind some of those movies where they couldn't depend on CG and stuff. And there was they had to hire these artists who had to really get things very detailed and just more realistic. It just came like the old Alien movies. I don't know if you guys still, those hold up.
Yes.
Fucking,
I was talking about that with Donald, and I forget the guy's name. Famous artist,
something
Riker.
Riker.
I
Yeah.
mean, I still look at Aliens 1986. I mean, Alien is great, but the sequel, that is one of my all-time favorite movie.
Oh, Aliens, right?
Aliens, and I mean, the special effects are fucking mind-blowing. And that you're right, no CGI, none of this computer stuff. Now this stuff has started to catch up, where there's some pretty amazing stuff going on. But man, when you look at that 90s, early 2000s CGI, it is laughable. Like I remember one of those stuff, which I didn't like the 3 Star Wars movies. The original 3 I loved, like the old 70s, 80s. And then they did the newer stuff I've liked, but those middle ones, late 90s, early 2000s, that shit is it's bad. It is so fucking horrible, man.
It's too much. Yeah. Yeah, the latest round goes back to the practical effects and does, I think, goes a little bit lighter on the CGI, but the story shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. It's like they were using models in those old movies. I'm sure we could look at them and scrutinize things if we wanted to, but you're looking at a real object, and that's kind of as simple as that. It's almost like if you look at some of the early digital sound effects and this and that, it's just like, whoa, that does not sound real at all. And like if that's the intent, cool, but it's maybe just now getting to that point where it could be argued that some of the stuff in the Kempers and the stuff nowadays sound. I almost said I would think you guys kind of being the sort of the more old school traditional rock and roll band would be sort of traditional gear, but that's not really true, because now that I think about it, you actually use the headrush gear. Is that correct? And that stuff is fantastic.
Yes, and I had this amp wall behind me. They're just dummy cabs, so I bring these to all the gigs. I load up in my semi truck and have my crew just stack them up. I stack them up, boys. And I pay them like minimum wage to do that shit.
And that's like all those Marshalls behind you, those real authentic Marshalls behind you right now are the dummy cabs, right?
Yeah, I bought them in the estate sale. Yes, Ingve, yeah.
The Ingve.
But yeah, headrush. That's kind of where with the Kemper, and it's in that same sort of vein. But I just really got drawn to that because the flexibility of it, and it's on the road. That's how most people are now too. So you do have your dummy cabs that are empty, and I play with Slash, and I know Slash keeps like a little ISO cab in the back, like behind the stage. There's like this one little 12-inch, and everything else is just a fake. But it is important to keep that show. So, if you can, bring a whole stack of dummy cabs, that's great. But really, you don't need to have that much power behind you to get the sound. But from a musician's perspective or a guitar player's perspective, the headrush pedal board is like this small. And it does everything you need to do, and it sounds good enough live. Now, look, I'm not saying I would completely, replace all the Marshalls with that. I think actually in the studio we use a real Marshall and that, so there's kind of a hybrid sound going on as far as our last record goes. So,
man, I will say too, I think at the end of the day, right, if something sounds good, it sounds good. And a lot of the stuff, like now I've been doing remote stuff, and I've got this little combo Black Star. I mean, I've got my Black Star head that I've used live a bunch. I've used Rivera's over the years, and all this stuff I love. But I've got this fucking Black Star combo. I've been using it on recordings, or I'll just send something out DI if you want to reamp it, or like some of that, I just go straight into that, throw some effects on it if I need. I mean, it sounds fucking badass, man. And people are like, what did you use? I love that all the time. I'll do a video.
Yeah.
What's your tone? And you're like, you really want to know? But back to the headrush thing. Now that I think about it, that I remember asking you about that at a show at Empire Control Room where I was playing with Bull, and we played with you guys. And at this last NAMM show, Tim Driscoll and I, Tim from Roomscarred, we went by and talked to those guys, and Tim's got one of those now and loves it, man. Absolutely loves that thing. So at some point I may invest in that too, or talk to those guys and see what I can do, because yeah, I mean, it's nice and simple. And the nice thing too is that you can really just sort of dial it in per song, right? You get all your tones just kind of right there in a foot pedal sort of in a right, like
Format.
a
Yeah.
format. Yeah,
And that's the thing with, thinking about live as far as tone. I mean, you're going to go through, there's a PA, either way that you're going to, that people are going to experience. So sometimes people have said that the head rush sounds better than, than an amp. I don't know. That's, I know it's purists and there's people that are always going to like talk shit or whatever, but as long as it's reliable, that's another thing too, is reliability is important when you're touring. You have tube amps that fucking blow, and what are you going to do then? And it's a heavy fucking piece of gear that you're dragging along, and your band, it's taking up space and shit like that. So reliability was actually one of the main factors that drove me towards that way for live stuff. So
totally, man. Yeah, I think so. And I think it's gotten to that point where, I don't know about you, but I remember back in the early 2000s, I had this amp called a Johnson amp, and it was like one of the first like digital. It is one of the, to this day, the heaviest fucking thing I've ever bought. And it's like just 212s. It's absurdly unpractical and heavy. And it was a nightmare kind of actually playing it live, because it was early, right? And it was not super practical yet, but it was really a cool thing. And I've used it a lot. It was my great practice amp, and I used a bunch over many years. And then the Line 6 pods came out, and that was kind of and we all probably had a Line 6 pod.
Yeah.
I still have my Line 6 pod, and that's cool. And yeah, you got all the traditionalists, and for a reason. I mean, it's pretty hard to emulate through like some of the great tones. But now I think, just like with special effects and so many things have kind of gotten to that level where they sound so good that you're even getting those people that are going like, man, like this does sound really good. And if like if one of them can't tell the difference, then, fuck it.
right, it's like, what are they doing with their lives? Are they getting the chicks? Are they are they in the green room doing all the obscene things? No. Well, does that chick care that your sounds from the head rush or the amp? Who's getting laid tonight? Does you think that you know what I mean? So
that's the best fucking advertisement for head rush I think that has probably happened. Like, look, play whatever the fuck you want to play. I'm in the green room doing all the debauchery. It's just like, it just cuts to your head rush pedal board, and then you like doing lines of coke with fucking having an orgy.
That's
all these young impressionable teenage boys are like, I want that fucking amp.
There you go. Hey, if they're watching, call me up. We'll work a deal out. So
it reminds me of the one guy that Skunk we both know that would come in and it's like, oh, you're playing. Oh, it's an Epiphone. I thought it was a Les Paul, or I thought it was a Gibson.
Well, that's the thing.
It's like, what's that guy doing? Like, who are you? You know what I mean? So,
well, I do think a lot of times the guys that it's the the trolling mentality, right? The more shit you talk, the less a lot of times you can back it up. Like, this hasn't happened to me a whole lot, and I tend to like not really let it bug me or anything. But so I have a friend, Saganya, that I've known for years and years. We met in like a classical guitar class or something in San Antonio, like over 20 years ago, and she lives in LA. She's been out there forever. And we every now and then we do these like it's been a while, but like cover songs of classic rock songs. Because we both love I say classic rock, we're talking fucking Guns N' Roses, but anything from Black Sabbath to Pink Floyd, Guns N' Roses, whatever. And we would do like these, whenever I'd go out to LA, we'd hop in her friend's studio and do like an acoustic version of something. And there was one of them we did was Goodbye to Romance, right? And the guy that owns the studio is like a world-class, another guy, Jeff Lewis, we're going to have on the podcast, world-class horn player. He actually used to play with the Jackson 5. It's hilarious. So he's got a picture in the studio with the Jackson 5 and then this like white dude with a fro in the fucking 70s. It's hilarious. But we did Goodbye to Romance. We were kind of trying to do our own arrangement, and I was kind of doing some jazzy chords and this and that. And then he laid down like a horn solo at the end that was just instead of the keyboard, which we were just like, fucking holy shit, this is badass. And so, you put that out there on YouTube and 5% of the comments are like, this is great. I love it. So cool. Blah, blah, blah. Like, thanks. Very flattering. And, one or two are like, too much reverb. Okay, fine. I mean, maybe it is, whatever, but thanks for being a dick. Well, anyway, then there's this one guy who just shit all over it. And he's just like, this sucks. Really weird disgrace. And of course, I go to his YouTube page and it's like this fat nobody, like playing crappy versions of Randy solos who loves Kiss. And I'm like, yeah, checks out. So like usually the people that are shitting on other people are like don't have a fucking leg to stand on. That is one thing that has fascinated me, and what I love so much about what I have done and all the people I've met. I feel like I know some of the best fucking musicians and guitar players in the world. Like, and I mean, so many great musicians, and they're all like the nicest, most humble people. You know what I mean? And I think that really kind of says a lot. I went off on a tangent and forgot what the hell we were even talking about. Where did that come from?
Reptilians and music.
Yeah, the fucking reptilian douchebags always trying to prove shit.
That's right. Reptilian trolls.
I think you just wanted to talk about Kiss again.
I always want to bring up Kiss. No, maybe it was Vic. It was. Did you say a band? Where? Now I'm really upset.
I did not say a band.
Some band get mentioned. Shit. Head Rush. Where were we? Let's go. Let's rewind.
Yeah. Head Rush, Green Room, making out with the chicks versus the Trolls not doing anything. I brought up a guy that we knew, or that know. Oh, you're playing an Epiphone. I thought it was a Gibson. Right?
I know what that's. Yeah. And what I was going to say, it's that kind of mentality where you're insulting someone else. Why? Like, I've gone into stores and like picked up a Mexican Strat and just been like, fuck, if I had the money, I'd buy this right now because I love the way this guitar plays. I have a Les Paul. It's called a Les Paul Special, right? And it's not the fancy Les Paul custom, but dude, it plays great. I bought it on a whim years and years ago when I was amp shopping, and I picked this guitar up just to like try out some amps, and I was just like, what is this Les Paul? This looks different. Played it, and it just, how it is, a personal connection with the guitar. And I ended up buying that fucking guitar. And since then, it has fallen over and had the headstock broken. It's been run over by a tour van. It has been put back together twice, and that fucker does not leave the house. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I think with instruments, it's very personal. And I think you're almost like, as a musician, I don't think a real musician would do that disservice to themselves, because I think brand and all that's great and tried and true. And so you kind of, you expect to pick up a certain thing, and it's probably good. But it's so individual, right? There's so many different guitars I played. You can play a boutique guitar at a NAM show that's $4,000 and be like, I hate the way this thing feels. Personal. You can pick up another guitar that's $300 and go like, God damn, this feels good, So, but what you were saying, Vic, like that whole notion of like, oh, it's not, it's not a real Gibson.
Yeah, it's not a real Les Paul. Yeah,
clearly a reptile.
Clearly,
so reptile of him. This joke has gotten beaten. We got to get off this reptile thing. By the end of this podcast, we're like, dude, come on, man. You didn't come up with anything else.
It's like beating a dead lizard, as they say.
That's
as
right.
The saying goes.
So we'll start it up. That'll be our new one. Cutting up the snake. So, yeah.
I just got an idea. I think maybe I should just quit my day job and just customize some old, late 70s, early 80s vans for touring.
Start collecting them VCRs.
Start collecting the VCRs. Get
go.
some shag carpeting in there.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
Hey man,
in there.
I could supply the tapes. I've actually got. I'm one of those hoarder weirdos that just can't throw shit. It's not. Look, I don't even have a VCR. I couldn't I'm sorry to ruin your podcast with this information, but I couldn't jerk off to that if I wanted to. All right, for starters, gross. Like anything, you know what I mean? Like it's outdated and it's just no good. Wait?
What's the cutoff point? What year is the acceptable?
I think you're talking about the German tapes you got. Right?
No, those are good. Those were ahead of their time.
Those are vintage.
I'm talking about. I mean, if I'm watching a video and I'm like, and I'm just going vaginal one-on-one, really? Like, ooh, I'm like, no, flame. So but also, so there's that aspect, and like, who the fuck has a VHS player? Where can I play that anyway? Right? There's no reason for me to have this, and yet I have these. I have old VHS porno tapes. Somewhere there's a market. Some motherfucker somewhere will probably buy this shit.
I could put old VHS players and 8-track players in those vans. Customized.
Well,
right?
I can give you the number of the guy that bought our van. Maybe he's in the market for that. So
There we go.
Shit, hit him up, man. If he wants some new tapes.
There you go.
If he's into that lame vag sex.
He's got to be, I mean, he looks like the type. So I have to. That's a whole other story. This guy, he was quite the character. The guy that bought our van from us. He just was. he said he lived down the street from Pearl Jam. He was telling us all this kind of shit. It was like, really, you're gonna pay us that amount for this van? Okay. So we really lucked out on that deal when we got rid of that piece of shit finally.
I mean, did he really live down the street from Pearl Jam?
He's told us a whole, like, he's one of those kind of guys that just tells you his whole life story. And he was like, yeah, Stone Gossard, he was living with his parents. Pearl Jam would come down and practice in the parents' basement, blah, blah, blah. You know, he just ran us over with the story and whatever, dude. You know,
you sold your band to Alex Jones.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of, I need to like kind of refine my impressions a little bit. But, you know, I get into that groove too easily.
Derek, that's a good groove, man. Don't lose it. If you do anybody and it sounds like that, I like it. It's like me. Have you ever done that where you try to like impersonate somebody and you're like, what? He's not Indian. What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, right. Then you get called a racist if you even attempt to do that accent anymore. So.
Well, wait, what kind of person would call you a racist, Alex Jones? I'm real curious.
Yeah.
Tell me, Alex.
Globalist. It's the globalists. It's the globalists. The Hillary Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, Weinstein people, folks, globalists.
Bravo.
I think that was one of the conspiracy theories he called out was the Weinstein one. Now that I remember, that was one of them that he got right. And I was like, holy shit.
If Steen is at the end, it'd be Bruce Springsteen will be the next guy in that.
Anyone with that last name now, right? So they're gonna make that correlation between the lizard people, right? Have they not done that already? I would assume that they're one and the same.
There's some kind of message in Born to Run. I think there's a message in there, you know.
Born to lay eggs.
Yeah.
So last thing, most important thing. Well, this has been great. Good podcast as always. Mark, thanks for joining us. If you have anything you want to plug, feel free to do so. But I think we should talk about at first. Okay. So what tends to make podcasts really great? I mean, yes, I'm really glad we've talked about products. We've talked about bands. We've discussed a lot of things, but I like to really try to do something at the end of every podcast where we can just be like, go to the last 10 minutes because it's gold. So do you have any great like band, like, shit stories, like, who in the band clogs toilets the most? I want a good like bowel movement, bathroom disaster kind of story, or it can be a porn jack off story, but you got to give me one of those.
Oh, okay. So our first bass player, who I think he's sober now for good reason. And those who know him, they know him. But he's a sweetheart. But back in the days, we were all partying very hard. We had a show in just east of Houston. Actually, it was somewhere outside of Houston, where the water was, and we were playing a show, and at the end of the night, he got so wasted that he passed out in the car, which is good because you have to babysit or whatever. And it came to the time where we had to go. We were staying at this promoter's boat. The promoter put us up at his houseboat, which is very kind of him, trusting a ragtag group of assholes like us to stay on his houseboat after the show. So we end up driving to his houseboat, and the bass player he's sleeping. We got to wake him up to get him to the boat. So we get him in there, and he's already had enough. And he wakes up, which is a bad idea. We should have just carried his fucking ass in there. But he was like, he got up. He's like, where's the fucking alcohol? Where's the booze? And he was like, dude, you're just fucking go sleep or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm looking for booze. And there's nothing to drink in this whole place. And so, we just let him go, and we're just all off on our phones or doing whatever. And next thing we know, we hear the engine start up, and this is a docked houseboat. And we look at each other, what the fuck? And then apparently he's up there in the where the captain's thing was, and he started up the fucking houseboat. And we go up there, and he says, I'm going to take this fucker to Jamaica. And we look at each other as a whole. And then it's funny at first, and shit got real when he started to put his foot towards like the gas, and he was about to like crank this like, man, like we would have been like, he would have fucking ripped this from, it would have been, just like the, whatever, the anchor would have been ripped off, and we would have been sued. The band would have folded as a, whatever. So that was a pretty scary story. Just basically the moral is don't let your bass players just keep them knocked out. If they're too fucking drunk, just keep them in the car. Don't be a good guy and don't get he needs to lay down. No, just leave him in the fucking car and the rest of you guys just go and and lay down and do your thing. So
wow, man. So yeah, was that why he's not the current bass player?
Well, his girlfriend also.
Did he get the Dave Mustaine treatment? Did he wake up to a bus ticket or a boat ticket the next?
Well, he
held him on down the river.
Yeah, he was quite the character. I mean, I think it was just all those influences to combine. I think he needed to just work on his priorities and shit and get his fucking life together, so to speak. So, I mean, he's doing great now. He's he's a cool dude, but that's just one example of the kind of things you find yourself in a rock and roll band, I would say. So
war stories, right?
There you go.
Very
close, but
actually one last thing I was going to ask, and I didn't think to ask it earlier, like, who are some of your favorite guitar players? What are some of your biggest influences?
Oh man, I love Justin Bieber. I love Justin Timberlake too. Those are my two.
I mean, those are the kind of the obvious ones that everyone says on the show. Yeah. Like, what about maybe
some of the more obscure ones? Tony Iommi is a big influence. Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath.
CNC, he played with CNC Music. Oh no, Black Sabbath. I got you.
Yes, he played in One Direction. Tony Iommi. He left One Direction to form Black Sabbath with Ozzy. And
biggest
Ozzy was
mistake he ever made. Yeah.
There you go. He's just tremendous, and I think he's like everybody knows who Ozzy is, but nobody knows. Tony Iommi is not a household name as it should be. When he dies, I think that's going to be a big deal. It should be as celebrated as Eddie Van Halen. I mean, they're both, to me, those guys are very important.
Well, that's a good point, because from an innovative standpoint, what he did in his riffs, I mean, that just set the tone for heavy metal. I mean, that really, you had Zeppelin and you had some bands doing some heavy things, but no one did it quite like he did it. And what's really interesting too is with the missing digits,
He tuned down. So anybody who tunes down, like we tune down, I do drop C normally. Anybody who does that has him to thank, because he did that because of the tension. For two reasons: because his his fingertips were missing, so he had to get those thimble. It looks like a thimble almost. So to make it easier to bend the notes and to play, he had to tune down the guitarist to decrease the tension. But also, I think they wanted to create that darker sound, or maybe that was a byproduct of it. But I think so anybody who down tunes, you have Tony Iommi to thank for that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I played with a couple bands now that do that tuning or tune down, and I never really did it. I've done standard or a half step down, drop D, but the whole drop C. So you're basically a whole step down, drop D, or you're down the whole guitar down.
So it's basically, I guess you would say it's drop D down a whole step. Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay,
CGC right. FAD. Yeah.
That's interesting to think about that, and then relieving the tension a bit. And I would assume, I guess, maybe he used pretty thin gauge strings. Do you know?
Yeah, some of those guys. It's really interesting. If you're one of those people who really geeks out on gear and that sort of thing. I think in the early days there weren't a lot of options. It's like now. I use this custom Ernie Ball gauge. It's like perfect. But I think back in that day, you had to get really creative. You had to use banjo strings or whatever the fuck you could find, or piano wire. I don't know. You just had to be it was hard to fucking, just to fucking even get your tone, really. So.
Yeah, I wish I could remember who it was I mean, we all know probably, like, Zakk Wylde apparently uses like ridiculous thick strings. SRV used really thick strings. But I remember one time I went to Guitar Center or something. I was like, oh, cool, Zakk Wylde custom. I'll try these. And the guy was like, you have to like reset up your whole guitar, right? And it was like 100 gauge string.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, never mind. But yeah, speaking of like Ernie Ball, now I've got several different types of strings to and I love the hybrid, just subtle little things, a 48 through 10 or whatever. But I can't remember who it was, and I wish I could. There was someone I was reading about recently that used a really thin high gauge string. I would have thought maybe it was Billy Gibbons, but maybe it was someone else too. That I would have. Sometimes you think guys might have real thick in there, and you're surprised to find out what gauge they use.
Yeah, Billy Gibbons is he's known, yeah, like very light strings, and I think he was. I think it's an interview I saw with him. B.B. King was the one who turned him on to really light gauge strings because there's less effort. That's cool. I mean, but I think it does depend on what your tuning is. And I mean, I feel like yeah, a little more heavier gauge, you're going to go down. If you're going to go past D, I would say try something and see what works. I mean, even with like picks, I don't know what kind of what thickness of picks are you using right now?
It varies a little, but I tend to use either 1s or 8/8.
So yeah, I use a 1 millimeter. I feel like I've gotten thicker as I've gone along.
Sure, yeah.
My hair has gotten grayer and my picks have gotten thicker. For some reason, I don't know why. I know some people play those like thin picks, so you could like play your chords delicately.
I think it's good when you're beginning, and I remember using those red Dunlop 0.5s, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just like click, 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 click. No way, man. Like a 1 is usually my comfort zone. I've got some custom Ernie balls that are 1s. I've got some customs that through Dragon that are 1, and yeah, so that's pretty much what I use. I know who I was thinking of, man. I was watching this masterclass on Hendrix, and apparently Hendrix used really thin low gauge strings, which I thought was really interesting. Like something like a fucking, instead of the 46 or whatever, it was like a 40 or a 38. It was like crazy thin.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all personal preference. There's really no right and wrong in that whole thing. It's kind of interesting. I don't tend to I think sometimes those are just the kind of rabbit holes you go down and you don't really intend to, and next thing you know, you're like, why? I just found out this for some reason. But it's kind of fascinating. What you said you used a custom. What's your gauge?
It's in the red package. It's the heavy bottom, skinny top. It's like kind of a hybrid. That's it right there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I got a lot to try. Yeah,
that's the one.
That is a fucking heavy bottom. That's hard, man. That's interesting. That's an interesting. But I mean, you could just you do it for just the fucking meat on the bottom.
So yeah, so like you the main riffs, I get a little it's a little heavier, but like on the top, it's I still keep them a little light, so it's easier to bend and easier to do the leads because you're playing on those
Sure.
those top 3 strings more often for that. So
I remember going up to sometimes in studio situations, I've done like the 5211 or something, and and you get the heavier but man, just that jump from 10 to 11 is a big difference on the top end. So I totally get the hybrid. 62 seems pretty big to me, but I kind of like a 48 or something, or a 52 maybe on the bottom. That's pretty.
You're a size queen on the bottom. It sounds like.
What's that?
You're a size queen, as they say.
Stop. Cool, man. Give us run us through everything one more time. So obviously Blackheart Saints is the band. I'm assuming blackheartsaints.com.
blackheartsaintsmusic.com.
Blackheart Saints.
Because somebody else owns that other domain. So
oh wow. Okay. So
yes.
blackheartsaintsmusic.com. You guys are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything else? I mean, YouTube, obviously. Where's the best place for people to find you?
There's also blackheartsaints.tv. That's our subscription-based service where you can pay $3 a month, and we have our our selection, our curated videos, and behind the scenes sort of thing going on there. But yeah, find us on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever streaming platform that doesn't really pay musicians that well. Whatever you want to use, you can find us on there.
You guys are doing pretty well with all that, man. Your Spotify and all that.
We try. Still doesn't. They still don't pay as much as I think they should. Spotify especially. Oh, but
God, no. I actually relooked that up last night, and it's like somewhere between 0.003,
yeah,
0.004, something.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it is. Cool, man. And I mean, anything else you want to specifically throw a shout out to or plug or anything like VHS tapes?
The VHS tapes. If anybody has some old school porn, first send it to Skunk so he can review it and he can QA it, quality control it, and then he can send it to us if he deems it worthy. But also we're playing in Houston. The next show is in Houston, Texas on December 18th. And that's going to be at Rockefeller's. And we're playing with Vallejo, which our producer, Omar Vallejo, is in that band as well. So
Right on, man. That's really cool. Yeah, you guys play up there a lot. You play Prooftop. How's that place doing?
You know, we actually haven't played there. We played. I think you might be thinking of
the
Warehouse.
Yeah,
Warehouse. That's the place. That's a great place. We haven't been back there in a while, but they're back to doing shows, and I think we're actually playing with Ace Frehley in May next year if that still goes according to plan. So
another thing you guys were doing, I think it was a place called Einstein's in Katy or something. You guys had a residency, right?
We did that for a while, and then that's just they shut down for a while. We just that whole situation changed. So
obviously none of these things are
everything's all up,
from fucking
all up in the air. That's right. But hopefully we'll get some Austin shows soon, hoping to see how that goes. Josh's band his Led Zeppelin band is playing this Saturday, but this probably would be out after that, I would think. But
are they playing Empire?
Yeah, Empire on Saturday. Yeah,
with I think a Tom Petty tribute band is Dancing Days and Damn the Torpedoes. What's who else is in that band?
Jelly Ellington is
great guitarist with that
sure
blue Les Paul. I actually hit up Jelly about the podcast as well, man. Yeah, I love that guy. He's a great guitar player, great singer too. Great the whole package.
He's a really nice dude. Yeah, he actually played on our most recent release that it's not out just yet, but he played some slide guitar on there. So he
sweet
added some some yelly, as Omar likes to say. But yeah, that band's they're doing their thing with the Tom Petty. So check it out. Well, I guess.
December 18th is you guys in Houston
at Rockefeller's.
And this show is coming up real soon, right? Is it this weekend or something? The one here at Empire? The
Zeppelin one. Yeah, that's just Josh's Zeppelin side project. So yeah.
So that one just happened.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It was a great show from the past.
That was a really great show. Yeah. Yeah, maybe one of these days we'll do this live. We'll see. Hell yeah, man. All cool. And clearly what I'm doing right now is procrastinating, going and doing other shit that I have to do. So I'm like, what else can we talk about? But we've all of our podcasts go 2 hours. And I think people are like, yeah, if it was 4 seconds, I would probably listen to your podcast. But
right. Yeah.
I really don't care what you have to say that much. But Mark Sean, who's a famous guitar player with a famous shaggin' van. And I think people are going to tune in, man.
Yeah, well, God bless them if they do. I can't imagine why they would, but hey, if you're around for it, that's great. So,
well, you know what? I'm always entertained, and this has definitely been fun and great talking with you, learning a little bit. And I think you should sign us out with some Alex Jones.
Well, you got all the Info Warriors. We got PrisonPlanet.tv. We got Skunk. We got Victor. We're the real warriors right here. We're up against Hillary Clinton and the globalists and the globalist agenda. And we're gonna sign off today. We got the podcast. We got everybody's good. You buy my supplements. PrisonPlanet.tv. Alex Jones signing off.
I think that should be every podcast.
Bam.
Yeah. We'll just sample that, and that'll be our sign off on every podcast. Mark Sean from Blackheart Saints, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, I'm Skunk Manhattan with Victor Ramos. See ya.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. About you